Hello and welcome to Farming Simulator 17. I'm Andy and this is Let's Play on Jonsboda Let. And what are we doing here? Well, basically we are planting trees. So I returned my trailer, the forest trailer, I guess. And I lent this, or leased this. It was like $2 or something, so it wasn't too much. And now I'm just moving around aimlessly on the ground, planting stuff, which I figured would be cool. Well, it will lead us to have more trees in the future, which I guess is good. So that's what we're doing, planting stuff. I've added a quick view mod. The link is in the description in case you're wondering where you find it. Which helped me look a little bit to the rear there. So the idea is to go around and plant trees a bit on this episode, so we can have trees in the future which we can harvest. Problem is playing seasons, it takes quite some time to get around to where you can harvest them. But, well, I guess we have to start somewhere. We'll see how far we'll play this. FS19 is coming out in like 5 weeks or so, so we'll probably shift then to that game. But hey, that's a future thing. You just go here. We'll plant a few of these and see how far we get it. I have another idea because I have 38,000 grand. 38,000. What I was on 38,000 left. My idea is that we would actually go and plant this. So there we go. We would go and rent a Ponzi. Harvest them. We'll harvest a ton of trees, and we'll sort of by doing that we'll have a ton of trees we can cut out later sell. So basically, to rent that, lease that, which will, I think it's around 27 grand. Then we'll use that to cut down a lot of trees, and then when we cut them down we'll return the Ponzi, and then we'll go and grab all the logs and go sell them. So that's sort of the idea I have, but I have not decided yet in any way. I'm just thinking out loud. So how is everyone doing out there? Hope you're doing good. I've been sort of starting to read up on my science, and I found this very interesting book which I ordered and got it today, called what's the name of it? I don't have it in front of me. Urban Myths About Learning or something, or about school learning, I think. Urban Myths About Learning. Which is very interesting because it's about different myths we have in reference to how we learn stuff, and there's a bunch of the myths in there which I thought I was a firm believer in and thought they were scientifically proven, and some of those weren't even close to being scientifically proven, so that was sort of a big problem for me. I'm basically ashamed of having thought those things. One of them is the idea that we'll have a set different of learning styles, i.e. that you could have a visual learning style, spatial learning style, no, auditative learning style. You could have kinesthetic, mispronouncing that. Kinesthetic learning style, like you use a body, and then there's a few other ones too which I can't remember, but And I've been a firm believer of that sometimes that I, for instance, have a very visual learning style. But it turns out there's very little evidence that people actually have that sort of styles, and that there exists distinct groups of learning styles, and it's been pretty much impossible to prove it scientifically that those exist, and people have tried. And the authors of the book had a good example how illogical it is. I want you to imagine the ears of a German Shepherd. So pretty much all of you will imagine a picture or have a picture in your mind of a German Shepherd. So, and you'll have that irrespectively if you learn, if you think you have a visual learning style or something, you'll see a picture. So that's one thing. And now I want you to imagine your best friend's voice. You won't see a picture, right? You won't. Well, might you have a picture of your best friend first when you try, but when you imagine the voice, you won't see it in a picture. You don't. It's not like a visual presentation of the voice. It's distinct auditive presentation in your head somewhere. And that's the problem with the theory, is that all people use all the different ways of getting in contact with their memories. So it basically says that it somehow has a magical way that we learn in this magical way in different styles. So if I learn visually, and there are differences, of course, and you can prove differences between people, but they're quite small. You couldn't really concentrate on being. It's not like someone is. Some might be slightly better at remembering visual things, but it doesn't mean that the person that is better at remembering auditive things is total crap at visual things. It doesn't work that way. It's not. And if there were those distinct groups, then the person that learns visually would have a lot of bigger problems learning auditive or kinesthetically. So the overwhelming evidence for the theory isn't there, just lacking. Doesn't mean there isn't differences in how we learn. There is absolutely differences in how we learn, but they are more. My fiance had this. We were talking about this at dinner tonight, and there are differences, of course, but they are so numerous. So, and they are basically, if you look, well, I was probably better at learning visually when I was younger, and maybe now I'm more better at something, other way of learning. So there are differences, but they are based more on who you are at this certain point in time, and that depends on how you were, and all those different variations are so numerous that if there was a calculation in the book, someone tried to calculate how many different learning styles there would have to be in order to facilitate all the different learning styles, and and they came like, I think, to well, basically more learning styles than there are people in the world. So because people would use different learning styles in different situations and at different points in their life, and so there's no scientific evidence for there being a set of groupings when it comes to learning styles. So that's very interesting. I thought that was interesting. I definitely said that, oh, I'm a visual kind of learner, or you are maybe a visual. I said that, and there's just isn't any scientific proof for that being there. But the interesting part, if you ask people, there's lots of evidence that shows that people think they have these learning styles. And that's one of the first evidence they had for there being different learning styles. I simply asked people, what sort of learning style do you think you have? Oh, do you think the learning style in which do you have? Oh, I'm a very visual person, or I'm very kinesthetic. I like to touch things, or I'm really good at hearing stuff, learning that way. So a lot of people, most people have the idea that they have a certain way of learning that's better than another way. The problem is, it doesn't really have anything to do with some sort of objective truth of the matter. So I may think I'm more adapted to learning stuff visually. Fair enough. But if you try that, you can. If you look at if I actually do learn stuff visually and auditive and kinesthetically, and then you test me on what I've learned, there isn't really a big difference between different groups. So we might think that we are better at learning in a certain way, but that doesn't really mean, that's not the evidence that we are actually better at learning that way. That's just evidence that we think that we're better at that. So, very interesting point the author of the book made in reference to that just because you might think that you are good or bad at something doesn't mean that you are it. I always think of it. I had this student when I worked in school who was quite good at math, and I had a student parent conference, and it was her grandmother, and we were talking about her, what she was good at and what she needed to work on. And I said that she's really good at math, and the grandmother said, no, she's not. And I said, yes, she is. She's really good at it. No one in our family, she stopped me, I was like, no one in our family has ever been good at math. So I said, well, I would think she's pretty good at math, actually. No, we're not good at math in our family. So, and my point there is that you might think that just because someone thinks it, it could be a sign of proof, i.e. I have a visual learning style. But doesn't really mean that you have a visual learning style, or that you are better at learning visually or compared to anything else. It's like someone said, I'm really, if I do mind maps and I do these old things in different colors, I'll learn easily. Yeah, and that might be absolutely true. But the thing is, for it to be learning styles, there has to be someone that is, when they draw mind maps with different colors, that doesn't help them at all. And I think that most people, when stuff is presented in different colors, in different way, in different schemes, learn better. So basically, everyone will learn better with a pedagogically enhanced learning style, or learning style presentation. So look at those. There's a good video, Death by PowerPoint, where you like, don't do this, and that's because people tend to absorb information in the same way. So just because I learn a lot by using colors doesn't mean that another person won't learn. Probably pretty universal that most people will, when presented information in a certain way, learn better than when it's presented in other ways. Interesting, right? By the way, I don't have any evidence for that. That's just my thought, so don't quote me on that. I don't know about. But the science in the book is quite extensive and thorough, and it's written by 3 European authors who are professors in I think it's educational science, but different. Well, if you find the book, it's really interesting. Science is very interesting. I was listening to another study when we came home from Halmstad. We drove home day after that, before that, a few days ago, and I was listening to this presentation of a study. I think it was a British study where they looked at they let 96 couples keep track of their feelings for each other and themselves, and they asked them, for instance, about jealousy, and if they thought that they would be interested in having an affair, or if they thought a partner would be interesting in having an affair. And that's it's not a huge study and need to be replicated, but that's an interesting finding, because what it showed was that people who themselves are prone to maybe cheating, or at least entertaining that thought in their mind, often thought that their spouses or partners had the same idea. So basically they thought that their partner, they had a sort of inclination to be having an affair or cheating, and they thought that their partner had the same idea. But the fact was that it wasn't true. The partners didn't have that same idea, and which meant that they were actually wrong. The persons that had that strike of jealousy, more likely they themselves had an inclination to maybe have an idea at least of cheating. And it's this sort of an old truth that we look upon the world from our own eyes, and we tend to therefore over-exaggerate things that are biased to what we think about the world, and underestimate other reasons or other aspects of the world. So basically, if I'm inclined to have an affair or cheat, I would overestimate my partner's inclination to having an affair and cheating. So usually in psychology it's called projection. You project your own feelings or your own shortcomings to someone or on someone else, so and then suddenly they are the problem. So it's interesting if you look at jealous men or women, this study would at least in some way a little bit give a pointer that maybe people that are jealous are more inclined to have an affair themselves. I'm not sure if it's correct or not. There's other psychological explanations for being jealous, of course, that maybe you have been abandoned or left, or basically history. At some point in time you yourself were abandoned, and therefore you're sort of scared of that happening again, which could be one explanation. But I'm not saying that is correct or wrong or anything. I'm just saying that's one possible explanation. I'm gonna try to get some stuff in here. I don't know. I'm not trying to own this wheel. I'm trying to put trees in the forest. So the tractor is running quite nice. It's not a tremendously powerful tractor or very steady or anything, but it's definitely a good tractor. And if it's cheap. It cost a bunch of money. It was kind of cheap, and that's important if you're trying to start your own firm from basic. So we haven't done anything here. We just made money by working. So that's good. Get this planted. What else scientifically has I been listening to? I listened to another podcast, a psychology podcast that talked about. I'm not going to bring that's probably like more R-rated stuff. But it's interesting about sexuality and sexual, the science behind sexual fantasies. I can say one thing, which was really interesting. It's about it is from an American scientist called Lemiller, I think, Justin Lemiller, and he's written a book on that based on his studies. And when it comes to sexual fantasies, if you have a sexual fantasy that is, hey, want to meet the love of my life, and we're gonna have it boring, not boring, we're gonna have the same sex over and over for the rest of our lives, then you are a really odd person, because people don't fantasize about that. People fantasize about a lot of stuff which they would never ever admit to someone else. And that's the thing, I like to think about that in my line of work, because I come across parents sometimes that are basically other parents, or the other parent think they're weird or something because they entertain some sort of sexual fantasy that's maybe not quite kosher, or at least in our society some people have some problems with it. There's a bunch of stuff written on this subject. But if you think that, hey, people don't have really weird fantasies, you're wrong. People have extremely weird fantasies. It doesn't mean anything. Doesn't mean they're nuts. In a way, it doesn't actually mean that they might never actually live out their fantasies. And it was a very interesting podcast. I'll put a link to that in the description, because if you're interested in that sort of subject. It was really interesting. A lot of stuff that I had no idea, or basically didn't think was true. I was like, what is this actually true? It's a substantial study. It's 4,000 respondents, so it's not a small thing, and it's been vetted and stuff, and there's the science behind it. So it's probably represents the best knowledge level we have to date. In 10-15 years we might have another level of knowledge, but it presents today the best we know in that field. So I'll put a link to that in the description, because it's sort of not cool. Cool might not be the word I'm looking for, but it's basically there anyway. And see, we'll go up to, I think we'll go up to the farm now. Plant some trees there. Next episode I'm going to talk law. Not lawyer. I'm going to talk law, maybe. I did this. I had a question to which my teachers at school, and they couldn't answer it, so I actually contacted the government, the Department of Justice, and got a really interesting answer from them. Basically, I didn't really answer anything because I sort of found a hole in the law, loophole in the law. Well, not a loophole, it's actually a sort of problem with the law. But things probably won't ever happen. That means I have to use that. But if I have to use that law, I know where the problem is, where the problem lies. So that's interesting. I might talk about that on the next episode. I'm not sure. Maybe. I haven't decided. You'll probably think it's really boring, so we'll probably go like, no, don't talk about law, damn it. Why would you ruin a perfectly good podcast by just start talking about the law? You dimwit. No, I don't think I'm a dimwit. I hope I'm not a dimwit. Oh, I'm stuck. Why am I stuck here? Maybe here. Oh, I can't move. Is it because it's rocks or something? We'll put some trees over here where I sort of harvested trees. Got to go across here. We'll go here. Get this over here. If I can get it to turn around, which seems slightly implausible currently, because it's not. Oh, it's turning. Sort of, slightly. It's turning slightly. Am I turning? Yes, I'm turning slightly. Come on, turn. You can do it. I have faith in you. No, you couldn't. Okay, so I probably need a slightly more powerful tractor. I need to go and do this at more slightly level field over the ground instead of this, which is slightly unlevel. See, I'm gonna fill this, and then I'm probably gonna stop planting trees for this time, and then we'll go back, return this to the store. Can plant this. So I mean, these grew up to some pretty decent sized trees, so and we would like some decent sized trees, absolutely. So that's good. So we planted a bit of trees here on this episode, so in the future we can plant some more trees, but I'm sort of bored of planting trees. So I might stop after this load. That looks nice. It's good with trees. There's a hand planting mod, which I tried it out and didn't get it to work really on the map I was playing, so maybe it will, I probably did something wrong on the map I was playing. And maybe on this map it would work perfectly and flawlessly, but I don't really know. Two left, and I'll plant one here. There you go, and the last one now, before we head back. And there it is. So now we can just drive back to the store and return this. And then on the next episode we'll rent the Ponzi and go play with that a bit. I think that could be fun. I think that's a good episode. But that will be on the next episode. So anyway, thank you for watching. I'm gonna stop recording there. My name is Andy. This has been the Let's Play on the Jonsboda map, and I've been playing trees. If you like this channel, please subscribe. If you like this episode, please hit the like button, leave a comment or share, and I will see you next time. Take care everyone. Bye bye.